Hello everybody, it's Sunday 29th of March 2020. It's day 6 of the coronavirus lockdown, so I thought I would spend a little bit of time sort of, if you like, promoting my dad's book, something that he spent 10 years writing and composing and gathering information for, travelling between Greece and England and Cyprus, all around Cyprus. He was visiting various people to gather information, and all of this is explained in the book. The book is, for those of you that don't know, a wonderful insight into Cypriot music and tradition. The book itself explains my dad's immigration to England in '64, his heritage, his passion, and all of that is obviously conveyed in the book. The book has a number of pages. I think there's over 500 pages in the book. It also comes with 11 CDs. The title of the book, there you can see, is Tis Kipro η παράδοση στον τόπο και στα ξένα, Cypriot tradition, home and abroad. The book is written in both Greek and English. So for those of you that can't read Greek, fear not, there is an English translation for you. So there is my dad and a few words from him. You go into the book, and there's some wonderful pictures, beautifully presented. This is the beginning of all the Greek. So page 3 there. It goes on to explain all of this. I mean, I've read this a number of times, but most recently, after the passing of my father, while I was in Cyprus for his funeral, I obviously had a little bit more time than usual around my mother's house to digest the book and its meaning, and I suppose reconnect with my dad's thoughts and feelings around what was his passion. So page after page, there you go. Here's the English translation. And this, by the way, is at page 56. I think you might start, there's a preface on page 55. So it explains everything in detail, as I say, beautifully presented. There's a lot of mentions in here about various musicians, violinists, laudon players, singers, dancers, basically people that are involved in the traditional Cypriot folk music over the years. My dad explains how he first started the violin at the age of 11, I believe it was, from Master Stefani. Master Stefani, by the way, he played at my first wedding in 1990. My dad was telling me over the years about how Master Stefani had taught him how to play, and of all the violinists that I'd heard, my dad's style of playing obviously came from somewhere, and what better homage, I suppose, to that than to have Master Stefani play at my wedding. So if anybody was at my first wedding in 1990, then you would have heard the master himself on the stage. But here we go, some acknowledgements there, and then it goes into the CDs and how they're all laid out. Of course, there's some wonderful photography. That's my mother with my yaya. There are pictures, of course, from the family album throughout. That's my brother at his wedding to Anastasia. CD 1 is about the wedding customs of the bridegroom, or the songs that are normally played at the what we call the stolisma, που να στολίσουμε το γαμπρό. There you go, stolisma του γαμπρού. So for those of you that like to read the music, here probably for the first time for a lot of you, are the actual notes depicting how the song is played. But of course, the point that my dad was making was that the way the notes are written and the way that the notes are played are two completely different things, because it's about translation, if you like. In the same way that he spoke English perfectly, but with a very Greek accent, the music is also played in a similar way. You can read the notes, but how they're played is totally different. So the book will hopefully convey that to those of you that take advantage of it. So this is all about CD 1, the number of different songs that are on here. Each CD, of course, has anywhere between 17 and 20 tracks on it. So there's nothing else like this, which is why my dad spent the number of years that he did compiling this book as a lasting legacy to not just his life and his passion, but also to Cypriot folklore. There's Kyriago Mapura, one of the featured artists on the albums, and of course did a lot of shows and so on around Cyprus and here in England with my dad. CD 2, when we get to it, is of course following on from the traditions of the groom, is the wedding customs of the bride. So similar kind of format, but with different instruction. There's a very young me that was taken at a wedding probably about 22, 23 years ago that I went to. I think that was in Wolverhampton with my dad, with my brother Alex, sorry. And there is my brother George, and a few other violinists. Of course, my dad is up there in the top. And then you've got some of the ones that may well be better known to some of you. Michalis Gouloumis, for instance, Michalis Betsilidis. So all of these images beautifully presented in this wonderful, wonderful book. There you go. Stolisma des Nifis. Of course, it follows a similar format, but in a different key to that of the Lambrou, the groom. And there is my dad playing at one of many weddings. I started playing the violin with him at Greek weddings probably when I was about 13 or 14. At that stage, I'd been playing the violin on and off since the age of 5, so probably about 8 or 9 years. And my dad was very keen, as soon as he had a companion, if you like, to go to do weddings here in England. Many of you that may be watching this will remember, of course, that I used to do a lot of the stolismata with my dad as a young boy. For me, of course, the bonus was that, as you can see here in this photograph, for those of you that don't know how a Cypriot wedding is carried out, there's normally a plate put in front of the musicians where the gathering family can basically make tips to the people that are there. So for me as a young man, that was obviously something that I enjoyed receiving. It was a little bit of extra pocket money for me, but of course I enjoyed spending time with Dad and going to the weddings. So yeah, the book goes on to show all of these different forms. So CD 2 then goes on to CD 3, which is more about the chori and dragoudia, dances and songs of Cyprus itself. So there you go. Garchilatisto. And so on all the way through. Some of these I hadn't heard. This one here in particular, this is one of my favourites. I hadn't heard this before the book launch, but I just love the rhythm of it. I love the wording to it. I mean, the Cypriot music is very unique. It tells tales of family and tradition and wants and needs and woes and hard times. I mean, you got to remember that until probably the last 25 years ago. I mean, I lived in Cyprus for about a year when I was a boy, so I could learn how to speak Greek. And certainly at that time, Cyprus was, even at that stage, developed from how it used to be. But, you know, for the most part, the Cypriots were vegans, certainly vegetarians, because there was very, very little meat. And that's one of the things I remember. Meat for us was a treat on a Sunday. And that's what a lot of these songs will be conveying, is all the hard times and the traditions. I mean, here you go. How many people do you see these days working the land like that? All the women bent over, and this is women bent over, breaking their backs. And there they are, cotton picking. There's a yaya with a spindle. It's just wonderful throughout. Christagis Sigis, of course, he sang at the book launch that my dad had in Cyprus, I think back in 2015, that we all attended to support. And he was such a proud man on that day. Then he goes on to CD4, Local Fones. Andreas Mapouras there. Some more wonderful, as I say, throughout the book, you'll find many, many photographs about the traditions and the musical instruments, the influences over the years, the people that have left their own mark, if you like. The Bigyavli, which is a simple little instrument, but to a lot of people you hear that and it will convey music from Cyprus in a way that nothing else can. I mean, at my dad's book launch in 2015, there was a chap that got up on the stage and he played a couple of tunes on the Bigyavli, and he was in his 80s, and it just sounded absolutely wonderful. I mean, that was just something for me that obviously I remember because I'm talking about it now. Some more photographs here. My dad was one of the masters, if you like, of the Chatista. And Chatista, for those of you that don't know, is Cypriot rap, for want of a better expression. And I said rap before you think of anything else. And rapping is, as you know, one person's speaking to another through song, where they basically take the mick out of each other. And the Cypriots were masters of this before the likes of Eminem and Will Smith even were a glint in their parents' eyes. And my dad was one of the best. I'm not just saying that, but he was. And that is, there you go. He's obviously laughing his head off at something that was said as part of that particular chatisma. And then you got Gibriaga, Baradosiaga, traditional Cypriot songs in CD5. A lot of the music on the CDs was recorded in Athens. And my dad wanted some of the best musicians, so he had the likes of Stathi Gougoulari on the violin. Kyriakos Kouventas also played the violin. My brother George, who studied at the Birmingham Conservatoire, he featured on a few of the tracks. And so on, some of the best musicians in Greece. There you go. And speaking of my brother George, there he is at a very young age, at a wedding with my dad, no doubt. My dad in traditional costume, leading the bride and groom. Of course, in Cyprus, usually after the stol is met at the house, before the bride and groom go to the church, the musicians normally play the instruments all the way to the church to guide the bride and groom there. CD6. Again with some more beautiful photographs. Balos Defteros. And CD7. Τραγούδοντας τις ρίζες μας, singing our roots. This is where the real culture of Cyprus will come through in music. Τσατιστά πάνω στην ίσια φωνή. CD8, Immigrant's Treasure. Then CD9, Musical Stories. CD9 actually is playing in the background. I don't know if anybody is picking up the background music while it's playing. I'll turn it up a bit, maybe you can hear it then. This is one of my favourite tracks, played by Gugulari himself. Again, more wonderful photographs throughout. There is my dad with Kyriakos Kouvendas. He's so proud of his heritage, and that was the whole premise of the book. CD10. CD11. This is just hopefully giving you a glimpse. And at this stage, I've been recording for nearly 19 minutes. So you can imagine the hours of pleasure for those of you that have an interest in the music, the tradition, the passion that goes into this book, that you're going to get from it. Then, of course, we move towards the back. Even has finger positions for the laudo. Different chords. Of course, there's an index to everything for quick reference. Then at the back, each CD is presented in its own pocket, separate to all the others. CD2, CD3, 4. When you look at some of these photographs, you can tell the research that he must have had to do to get these. I mean, where do you get those photographs from? Who knows? Who would have known these people? Where were they from? I mean, obviously, out of the Pshodas, circa 1890. So, CD6, CD7. My dad, of course, was in his youth, between the age of 14 and 17, a very accomplished, award-winning Cypriot traditional dancer. He actually went into Europe to represent Cyprus on a couple of occasions. He once told me that he had to choose between music and football, because he was also a very accomplished footballer. And of the two, of course, he chose music. I'm not going to tell you which one of those in that photograph he is. Those of you that know will be able to spot him. He's also in this one. And there he is there. Probably about the age of 14 there. Looks very much like my brother Alex. A lot of people say George, but I think Alex. Anyway, that's a different thing. And there you are. Please, 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 for those of you that are interested, now that you've had a proper insight into the book, by the way, that was just so that we can show you in terms of the content. There we go. There are 589 pages, including the indices and so on. So you won't find another book like it. This is 10 years worth of hard work, absolute dedication, passion and interest. There, as if you haven't noticed it already, is my violin. One of two that I have. My dad gave me this violin when I was 21 as my 21st birthday present. So I've had it 30 years. I don't know how long he had it before me, but it's probably been in the family for a good 40 years, I would say. And it's the most prized possession that I have. That will never, ever leave me. As much as I can, I do try and practice. Because we've had that passion instilled into us from a young age. But thank you very much for watching. But we'll also thank you even more if you consider buying the book. For details, please send me a message and I'll be able to tell you how you can get one, especially at the moment because of the lockdown that we're currently under, because grabbing hold of copies and putting them in the post is going to be a little bit more challenging, but my family and I will certainly do what we can. Thank you again. Take care. Stay safe.